Live from the Scheinfeld Center Innovator Studio at Santa Barbara City College, it's the Enlightened Entrepreneur Podcast, where we inform and inspire Gen Z to become even more entrepreneurial and innovative in our global economy. I'm your host, Julie Sampson. Welcome to our podcast, everybody. How is your entrepreneurial journey going? We hope it's going well. Let us know in the chat, in the comments. You know, we meet here every Friday with guests from around the world. And if there's any content that you would like us to cover, just let us know because we'll be happy to deliver. We are into helping you build a livelihood that matters, be your own boss, and make the world an even better place. So if that's what you're about, you've hit the right place, and we're happy to have you here. If you like what we're doing, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, because definitely we're better together. So let's go ahead and just dive right in today. I'm excited to bring you this fourth of our 7 podcast series, all designed to address common areas that aspiring entrepreneurs get stuck. And in our first 3 episodes of this series, we discussed how to come up with business ideas, how to test business ideas, how to prototype your business idea. But today we're going to take it a step further and address the 3 stages of manufacturing. That's prototyping, small-scale manufacturing, and large-scale manufacturing. And we'll address funding along the way too. So let's briefly run through these stages. Prototyping, first of all, you'll remember that a prototype is a simple version of your product that you use to validate a specific assumption, like for instance, that your solution solves the problem that your customer has and you deliver on your value proposition. Manufacturing prototypes is typically done on a very small scale. You're trying to produce enough units to get the product in front of your customer to test it out and provide feedback, and you'll work out the kinks with that. Then you enter into small scale manufacturing once you've validated your design and you want to produce a small run or a small batch of your product for a new product introduction into the market. The upfront cost on this is typically higher than with a large run, but allows you to test out your products in an expanded way and gain more validation in terms of increased sales and customer satisfaction before investing in a larger run. And also a really important part about this stage is that it helps you develop your business processes, your operations, so that once you do expand with a larger scale, you're able to handle that expansion and deliver good service and products to your customer. So navigating these stages of manufacturing and funding is so important, because even a good idea can get derailed in going through these stages. So let's learn how to keep this on track. And joining us to break this all down is lifelong endurance athlete David Silverander of Hitch, who brings discipline and dedication to everything he does. After graduating with a BA in philosophy from Yale, David worked in Silicon Valley as a product manager, which eventually led him to become COO of the athletic apparel company Rabbit. There he required expertise in manufacturing and logistics that have been invaluable in launching his latest endeavor, Hitch, including their Kickstarter campaign in April 2020 that generated 1.2 million in pre-order pledges from over 15,000 backers representing over 70 countries. David, it's also amazing. Thank you so much for being a guest on our podcast.
My pleasure, Julie. Nice to talk with you today.
I got to tell you, when I heard about your success, one of the first things that I thought about was, I wonder how much sleep they're getting these days, because usually with any kind of birth, sleep usually goes down the tubes with it. How are things going for you?
Well, things are going well. To that point, my co-founder Sky and I also have both become fathers in the time since that we launched the company. So you're right, there's not a ton of sleep going on. Although we both really believe in self-care is important to kind of perform your best. So we do our best to take care of ourselves. But there's a lot of late night calls and early mornings, and but obviously, if this is what you like doing, that's fun and exciting too. So
That's
we're
right.
having a good time, certainly.
Let's just dive right in because every moment is going to matter here.
Yeah,
So, for our listeners who are not familiar, how do you describe Hitch?
sure. So Hitch is a full-size insulated water bottle that carries what we call a barista-approved coffee mug, which is also insulated right inside. And it also carries a lid for that mug. And the basic idea is it's just going to make it easier for you to bring your reusable cup with you everywhere, so you don't have to use paper cups. And just like many of us, like you've got your Yeti water bottle I spotted back there. There's a lot of benefits of that. It keeps your water the temperature you like, and it helps you not use plastic bottles. Reusable cups have all those same benefits. And I think a lot of us, certainly before I embarked on this project, I thought, well, paper cups you can recycle, but you really can't. Theoretically, they can be recycled, but you have to remove the plastic liner that makes them waterproof. And there's very few facilities that do that. So over 99% of paper cups end up in the trash. And of course, they come from trees in the first place, and that's really unfortunate. And as we, Sky and I are both very passionate about sustainability, and that's certainly the direction the world needs to move in and is moving in. So we wanted to make it easier for people to carry their own cup, because when you dig in, it's really convenient. That stops people from doing it. Their lives are full, their bags are full, their hands are full. That's an insight Sky had in his own life. Just, I would like to carry a cup, but it's not very convenient. And so he had this idea, what if we could combine those two things? And like most things, easier said than done. Took a lot of work. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit, but that's what Hitch is.
I think something that's so amazing about your design is that it's just got, I don't know, a lot of delight to it. Like the innovative way you brought it together. I think that's part of the feel good aspect of it, as well as, the benefit to our environment that comes along with it.
I'm glad you think that. We certainly worked really hard to achieve that. There's a lot of different ways you can combine those two objects I just described, obviously, and some of them are quite simple. Some of them are really complicated. We explored, I don't know about every single configuration, but more than you would imagine. And it was really important to us to arrive at a product that, first of all, fits into the way people live their lives, so that you do have a product people want to buy. Obviously, that's kind of the most important thing from a business perspective. But we also wanted it to be fun to use, beautiful, something people would be excited about, a product people are proud to have.
Yeah, it's definitely got this simple elegance to it. It's awesome. Where are you? We talked about prototyping, small scale manufacturing, large scale manufacturing. So just so that we can get a sense, where are you in that spectrum? Where's Hitch?
Yeah, so we are right on the precipice of large scale manufacturing. For your viewers who are familiar with crowdfunding, it's an interesting world where you sell a product before it's been fully manufactured, and your backers give you the support to help bring the product to market. Obviously, we've done a lot of engineering work before we launched the campaign, but we are just about ready to ramp up production of our, large scale production to fill all of our crowdfunding orders.
Wow, you've moved so quickly. That's amazing. Going back to the initial prototyping stage, what was your first prototype? And then how did it evolve, up to where it is now, including, where did customer feedback come into that whole development?
Well, I'll start with the last question. We've tried to incorporate, customer feedback, people we know, people we don't know at every stage, because that's really critical, I think, as you were suggesting, to making a product that isn't just something you like, but that other people are going to like. The first prototypes, Sky did some, basically with construction paper, to kind of start looking at form factor. We know that for a water bottle, it's something you carry around in your bag or on your person. It's really important how big it is. So the earliest, and the great thing about something like that is you can just do it at home. It's cheap. You don't have to pay engineers. So that's really how we started looking at size and form factor, how these two objects should relate to each other. From there, we moved to some 3D printed prototypes. 3D printing is an amazing technology for prototyping. It really makes it much easier and considerably less expensive to prototype things than it used to be. And as you were saying, for a physical object, you kind of just have to hold it in your hand, or else you don't, you can look at drawings all day long and not really understand what you're looking at or how it's going to work. So we moved to 3D printed prototypes, and then there's other forms of prototyping from plastic where you essentially, take a big block of plastic and mill it down. So we did some of those also. I have in a bin sitting outside my office, dozens of those.
I'll just ask the question directly. How did you fund that whole, progression through that?
Sure. So the, very initial stuff, Sky and I funded ourselves. I mean, primarily with our time, but also we did put in some money of our own to fund prototyping, startup costs related to, legal things like that. And then we did sort of seek investment from what you call like a friends and family round. So a small number of people who we knew through the community who are entrepreneurs themselves for the most part, and some of whom are very passionate about sustainability. We told them about the idea and basically the core premise that I just gave you, and a few of them signed on and said, yeah, we'd like to help you bring this to market. But our idea all along, even at that stage, was to bring it to crowdfunding, to get a bigger platform and to get more funds to do a larger production run.
At what point did you know from the get-go that this was going to be something that you would go with crowdfunding with, or did that realization come down the pike a bit?
That's been incorporated into our thinking since pretty close to the beginning. We're fortunate to have really great advisors and people in our network who have brought products to market, and some of whom have done successful crowdfunding projects. And we talked with them about, the dynamics of that and the pros and cons. And it's some model we became very interested in. And the more we researched it, we thought it would be a good fit for this product and this story. And given our background, we both have a decent understanding of marketing, particularly Sky is really expert at that. And we thought that we could, make a good go on crowdfunding. And it worked out pretty well, as you said. Okay,
great. And I guess I should jump in here because you've mentioned Sky a couple of times. And so maybe for our listeners, we should share who Sky is. So maybe you could step in with that.
Sky Gilbar is my co-founder. He's slaving away on our, I think, website wireframes right this moment. But he's, he and I are the two that have gotten this off the ground. Like I said, he's the one that had the core insight. What if you could combine these two things, and we're friends. Sky, I grew up in Santa Barbara, so did Sky, which we both think is kind of cool. We know each other because our wives are very close friends, and we've known each other for a long time. And would always kind of talk about business ideas and other things like that at a cocktail party or whatever. And started talking about this early on and realized it's something we both were excited about and passionate about. And I would say for anyone interested in entrepreneurship, having a partner is really invaluable because it's a tough journey, and a partner is support, and it's a commitment device, and it's a lot of things to keep you going. And best case, you balance each other out, and you're strong in some areas and they're strong in some areas, and you can get a lot more done together than you can by yourself, I think, in most cases. Yeah, really good. It's always interesting to hear,
how people find their co-founders, and work all of that out. So, such an important piece of that. Going back now to Hitch, how did you know that Hitch was at a stage that was ready to crowdfund? Because you have to plan ahead so much with crowdfunding. How did that all work? When did you know it was ready, and how did you work out the timing of all that?
You sure do, and I would say that's certainly was a big challenge. There's a lot of moving pieces that need to interact. As you mentioned, we shot a we think pretty great video for our crowdfunding campaign. A lot of people really enjoyed. So obviously to do that, you have to have a really good looking prototype for the video. And so that kind of starts a dependency chain of, okay, well, if we're going to shoot the video on such and such a date, which you kind of need to lock in pretty far in advance if you've got a whole crew and everything, which we did, that really kind of sets up some deadlines for yourself. So as far as when we knew the design was there, kind of a gut thing, really. I mean, you got to We just kept iterating to the point where we thought all the kinks were worked out. Like I mentioned, continually getting feedback. You can't, you have to be aware of the propensity for kind of groupthink, particularly in a partnership. You two people might think something's great and you show it to 10 other people and they think you missed something, and you have to listen to them, because otherwise you'll just build a product that you like. And that's great, but it's, not necessarily going to scale as a business. So just continually listening to people. We went to college campuses and talked to young people and tried to understand how they live their lives, and really starting from a place of empathy, understanding how people live their lives, what are their challenges across a broad range of variables. And once we felt we solved those things, there weren't any pitfalls, that's when we decided to push forward and make the campaign collateral and launch the campaign.
How did you identify your manufacturer and vet them? Because you had to kind of have them lined up, right, before you crowdfunded?
Yep. That is another long road. Like a lot of things with entrepreneurship, the internet is an amazing tool. So basically started with a long list of, for the double wall vacuum insulated kind of product that we're making, there's only so many factories that are capable of making that. They're pretty much all in China. So started with a long list of all the people who were even possible contenders. And then at that time, we had not revealed the design. So we were very conscientious of keeping our intellectual property to ourselves until we launched the campaign. So actually what we did was our engineer drafted up just kind of a very generic cup, and we got quotes for that from a bunch of different factories. And that let us get kind of a sense of what the range was. And we were able to hone in on, okay, here's kind of the middle of that range. These are the factors that make sense. We looked a lot. It's possible to see where companies you admire get their products manufactured. You can look at shipping records and import records and things like that and say, okay, we think this company makes really high quality products. We'd be interested in working with the manufacturer they use. And so you can kind of narrow down the list that way. And then ultimately, we were fortunate to have someone in our network who was able to give us a warm introduction to one of these factories that was on our short list already and had really kind of checked all the boxes. And then we pushed the process forward with them through quoting and some other things. And, it's certainly a big, important decision. And ultimately, it was made on business terms and also personal terms. We talked to the person a lot who owns the factory and felt good about him and had heard good things from people who worked with him. So just like anything else, kind of looking for multiple vectors of confirmation that you're making a good decision.
Are manufacturers these days used to working with campaigns, crowdfunding campaigns where, like with Kickstarter, it's an all or nothing thing. So with the manufacturer, of course, they're running a business too, yeah. And they want to secure concepts that, are going to be a good deal for them and generate, lots of manufacturing capacity. So how is their reception to this whole thing where you don't really know whether your idea is going to go or not?
To answer your first question, I think a lot of factories are increasingly familiar with crowdfunding because it's really grown a lot. I think maybe a lot of people still think of it as kind of like, if you have an idea that, in your garage and you're trying to get something small off the ground, there certainly is that component of it. But the campaigns that do really well, those are large volumes of product. And so factories are always looking for what's the next hot new thing. And they know that a lot of the hot new things launch on crowdfunding these days. So they're receptive. I think a lot of it is, as an entrepreneur, you have to know your vision and what's exciting about your product. And you have to pitch that in all directions, to customers, to investors, to the factory. So it's partially the storytelling of saying, hey, this is, there's a huge market opportunity here, and you're going to want to be making this. We're going to make and sell a lot of these, and so bringing them on board in that sense. And they have a lot of experience. They've seen, if you own a factory, you've seen a lot of products come and go, and they believed in what we were doing. Also, it's also it's an interesting manufacturing challenge for them. It's a bit more complicated than a lot of the products they make, and there's more things that have to fit together. So if you're someone who's really proud in your factory and what you can do, I think they found that appealing, that it was going to be a product that they could show off to their other, factory owner friends and say, hey, yeah, we're making Hitch, and look how great it is.
So then you launch your campaign, you have the manufacturing kind of worked out, and then you have this just amazing success with it. I mean, were you anticipating the level of success that you had with, first of all, with Kickstarter, and then you did it again with Indiegogo?
Yeah. No, we were not. I mean, obviously we're ambitious people and we were putting our time into this, so we hoped it would go really well. To get over $1 million, I mean, that was my stretch goal, let's say, right? We ended up in the top, 0.1% of campaigns ever on the platform. So that's really super exciting, a huge vindication. We also launched, amid COVID, right? Initially, we were going to launch in mid-March. And then that's right when everything was shutting down and everyone was so distracted, that just didn't make any sense. So we ended up launching on April 28th. And, it was a strange time still, but I think a lot of people were at home on their phones and they saw our funny video and it was something they were excited about. And so, timing's everything. You can't control it. We were very pleased with the result, needless to say. And then I think, earlier you may have said that we did 1.8 million on Indiegogo. That's total. So we've done about another 600,000 on Indiegogo. And the reason for that is just to continue the opportunity for pre-orders. Kickstarter is, time limited. So that campaign ran for about 35 days and then it's over. And then as long as you're still in this window before you're actually going into mass production, Indiegogo On Demand is just a great platform to basically move the Kickstarter campaign over there and continue letting people get advantage of the pre-order pricing.
We sometimes see entrepreneurs use the two platforms, together. So that's really interesting to learn kind of the strategy that's behind that. So Trevor asks, what was the most important step you took to go from a good idea to a tangible product? Good question.
That is a great question. Yeah, I think it's really the prototyping, and also getting the prototypes and then seeking input, because there are a couple really critical components of the design we ended up on that were brought up by, I can remember, this particular conversation early on where someone's like, well, I think this is really cool, but I wouldn't use it for X reason, and then you go back and Sky and I we were both having those conversations going, well, gosh, I got this input that we really need to consider this. And so, you don't go back to the drawing board, but you say, well, okay, if we don't address that concern, it's not going to work, So, really seeking input and then listening to it, because it's easy. I think we all sometimes like to think our own ideas are perfect the way they are. So don't seek the input unless you're actually going to take it, I think is a key thing.
We have a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs, who are hoping to launch their own product, and so what is the overall recommendation that you would give to them, in terms of developing their products, manufacturing, crowdfunding? What would be your top tips for them?
I think the biggest thing for me is just you have to build your village, as it were. Whether you have a co-founder or you're doing it by yourself, I guess there's probably some crazy inventor genius out there who could bring a perfect product to market all by themselves, but don't assume you're that person. Seek out input from people who are like you, people who aren't like you. Try and make as few assumptions as you can early on. Don't think that you know who your customer is, because that might surprise you. Be open-minded, approach it with a spirit of kind of exploration and adventure. Bring in also people who've done it before. They're the people who've been there and made the mistakes. Often they are more willing to share their time and energy and experience than you might think, because they're happy to help people who are trying to do something new. And you can, one 30-minute conversation with the right person can save you 6 months of heartache, So have those conversations, seek them out. If you ask someone for advice, the worst thing they can do is say no, don't be afraid. I think it's all about openness and kind of just, you got to be proud of what you're doing and think that you're doing something that's worth time and energy from yourself and other people.
That's such good advice. So often when entrepreneurs get an idea, they're typically working on their own. You came to the concept, working along with Sky, but a lot of times they're working on their own. It's really important to break out of, being that loner and realize that resources come through people, whatever that resource is, whether it's advice or just camaraderie or funding. Having that network is super important.
Yep. I think also just from a psychology standpoint, there's a lot of research around once you make a goal public, you're a lot more likely to stay committed to it, whether it's I'm going to run a marathon or whatever it is, because then you have something kind of at stake. And so it's scary to do that. But if you really want to do it, that's another commitment device, right? Where you're saying, hey, I told my 10 friends I'm going to do this, and I'd be a little embarrassed if I don't. And so that's a way of holding yourself to account. And, you have to assume there will be times that it's hard and times that you might feel frustrated. And so the more things you can do that kind of keep yourself moving forward, you'll appreciate that as you move down the road.
Yeah, for sure. And I think another huge step in that direction that you both obviously did is getting your idea into something tactile, or something tangible. It can be a service or a product, but we're talking about products here. Taking the step to getting it into some form and being willing to show it to other people and not having to have it be perfect.
Yes. The perfect is the enemy of the good. I say that all the time. And you want your end product to be as close to perfect as possible, but an early prototype just isn't going to be. And people, most people think it's pretty cool to see something before it's done, because we don't often get to see that. So you just kind of have to step back and take that approach that this is, you're in on the design process. And sometimes you have to focus on, like, I know these 4 things aren't right, but I want you to focus on this feature, and kind of steer their feedback that way.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because sometimes, like you were saying, the feedback can be overwhelming. But what was so great that you just focused on right there was you said coming back to, what it is, knowing what you're actually testing for and being able to redirect people to that, to get the feedback.
Yep.
Yeah, really good. Well, David, time goes so quickly, and thank you so much for sharing your expertise and background on manufacturing and your funding process. You've been a fantastic guest, and it's going to be so fun to see you continue to progress and see where Hitch goes, and I'm sure for our audience, they would like to know, what's the best way to follow you and how can they get their hands on Hitch?
Absolutely. So the easiest would be go to carryhitch.com. You can find our Indiegogo on-demand site from there. It is still available for pre-order there. And then we're also at Carry Hitch on Instagram. So that's the great place to keep up with what we're up to and our brand pitch and all that kind of stuff.
Perfect. Okay. And we'll put those links down below in the description. And so for our audience, summarizing 3 stages to manufacturing: prototyping, small scale manufacturing, and large scale manufacturing. And I hope that this information has been useful for you. If you liked this episode, we hope that you'll turn in next week, where we're going to build upon this, where we're going to look at manufacturing and crowdfunding, but adding to that, where can Shark Tank come into the picture? So that'll be super fun to explore. That's 2 p.m. next week. Please share, like, subscribe, and to help build our community. And until next week, everybody, have a great week. Stay strong, keep innovating, and keep bringing awesome products and services to life. Take care, everybody. Okay, we're done.